Great. Hi everyone. Welcome to the first .VVM community meetup of 2022. We are very excited to have you here, and just like a small disclaimer. So this meeting will be recorded. If you have any issues with the recording, feel free to log out, and then you can watch the video later on YouTube. We are very excited to have you here for our first meetup. Like I said in the announcement, we have like an amazing line of speakers. As so, just like a brief view of the agenda. So first talk will be by Andres. He will be speaking on like changes in like validation and Roslyn analysis and Visual Studio extension for .vm. And next talk will be by Daniel. So Daniel will be speaking on the .vm in action with ml.net. So we'll start with Andres. We are very excited to have Andres. So Andres is a core developer at Riganti and is also directly working on the .vm framework. So Andrej has been working with DotVVM like for about like more than a year, and Andrej will be speaking on changes in validation, Roslyn analyzers, and Visual Studio extension for .vvm. So over to you, Andrej.
Okay, so thank you very much, and maybe can I show my screen now?
Yes, please.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So once again, thanks everyone for joining in and for inviting me to this speak today. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Maybe can. Yeah. Okay. So for this presentation today, I prepared some changes that will be coming along in .vvm 4.0. And while I already spoke about some of these stuff earlier, we also did some further adjustments and introduced a bit new stuff into that. So I'll be talking about validation and code analysis in .vvm also today. And today I'll be also showcasing some new stuff in .vvm Visual Studio extension. So hopefully there is there is something to be looking forward to. So let me start with the validation first. So validation changes in .vvm 4.0. Validation framework in .vvm has been one of the features that been in .vvm for quite some time and haven't been changed a lot, to be honest. So for .vvm 4.0, we finally decided to fix some of its issues and prepare it to be in a much more better state. So later we can also introduce some additional interesting stuff without further breaking changes. So for example, we are already right now working on validation for static commands. And yeah, but let me first of all show what actually changed in .vvm 4.0. So the first major change in .vvm 4.0 is that we no longer use knockout expressions for whenever you write or see somewhere written validation target paths from .vvm. We previously used this quite not that readable format, which consisted of many parentheses. And we decided that we will be using this new one, which is much more readable. And what this means is that every property path is now in .vvm expressed from root view model to the to the violating property that has the error attached to. So the first important change is absolute paths. I'll be also showcasing in a later slide where you can interact with this stuff. But just to know, for now, internally, we changed the way we work with these paths, and we now use this much more readable format that is always absolute from the root view model. So there are no ambiguities like before, whenever a user wrote something, like we weren't really sure where is it actually starting. So now they are always absolute. So the next change that we did is we added an possibility to override validation targets. So if you used validation targets before, so for example, to validate only a part of view model and not have it validated as a whole, you would generally use validation targets that would delimit the subset of the view model or the subtree of the view model that's only getting validated. And in .vvm 4.0, this is possible to override when manually adding errors. And adding errors became also really much more pleasant, I would say, because there have been some important changes as well. We introduced a new API that is compilation safe, that users cannot there is right now not an easy way to misuse it, because previously there was a possibility to manually work with model state, which we didn't really like. So right now we introduced a bunch of methods that you can use, such as this one, to assign custom errors. So this, so for example, this method is a bit more complicated, but it's just to showcase like what that we can also cover now more complex error assignments. So for example, in this example right here, you can see that we would like to add a new error. So for example, in a form view model, which might be the root, or it can be reachable from the root. It doesn't really matter. Our internal framework will generate the absolute path on the background. And then you can, for example, provide even additional lambda to express that, yeah, I would really like to assign the error on the ID property of this object. And then, of course, the error message. So normally, you probably, in most cases, wouldn't need these many arguments to describe where to attach an error. You would probably be just fine with providing the lambda. But the important stuff is that .vvm right now takes care of everything. It assigns the error into model state. There's actually right now not a way to adjust model state outside of .vvm framework. So only these add model error methods should be used from now on. And as I was promising, where you can see, where you can interact, for example, with these absolute paths. Right now, in .vvm 4.0, if you receive validation errors that are displayed in JavaScript console, you can also see it there. So whenever you get an error, like here, for example, that a name field is required, we would also provide you with the property path. So using this, you can exactly pinpoint where in view model you have this error, because the leading slash means it's starting at, of course, at the root view model, where there must be a property called detail. and the detail must have a property called name. And the error is, of course, attached to the name, as we already inferred from the error message. So I feel like in .vvm 4.0, this it might not seem like a lot, but these features are quite nice and make the validation easier to use and provides a perfect base for us to implement some more complex and additional features that haven't been introduced to .vvm before, such as the validation for static commands that we are already working on. So this has been the most important changes in validation, but you will be able to read a bit more about them in the release notes and migration guide that we have been already preparing. So, so that if you weren't able to migrate to .vvm 4.0 just yet, with that document, I believe there shouldn't be any problems. And of course, as always, if you find any errors or encounter any difficulties, don't be afraid to write us on GitHub, leave us an issue, and we will try to get to that as soon as possible, or also some other platforms such as Gitter and so on. So this has been validation. And the next topic that I'd like to talk about is Roslyn analyzers. So, or the code analysis as I introduced it before. So right now, in regards to code analysis, we have two perfect tools for .vvm. So there is the .vvm Visual Studio extension that you can use to basically have a really convenient way to work with .html files. Of course, a bunch of other stuff, but mainly main functionalities in the .html files. And right now we also wanted to cover a bit the C# part. So for example, we focused on the view models. And of course, we would like to find there some, or just notify users when we found a potential error. So this feature is something that I already talked about a bit on one meetup a few months back. But there's been many changes because users discovered actually quite a bit errors. So it should be all fixed now. And if you haven't really encountered it yet, or haven't worked with this feature just yet, I'll be describing it in these slides. So as I already said, it's a code analysis feature. It's a static code analysis framework for C# and Visual Basic.NET. And our main intention for Roslyn analyzers and for their introduction to .vvm is to discover some possible issues, errors, and in the future even help users upgrade or just to discourage them from using some APIs in a way that they are not meant to be used, for example. So these are basically our main goals with the addition of Roslyn analyzers to .vvm. And right now we already implemented some analyzers mainly for view model serializability issues that I'll be showcasing a bit later on in Visual Studio. But there are, of course, many possibilities on various analyzers that we might introduce in future. But right now we focused on serializability issues of .vvm view models. So as you all know, .vvm view models must be JSON serializable, and we try to create an automated tool that would detect violations whenever something in view model is not really serializable. So these rules are can be pretty complex, but I can show you how they work. So If you have a view model, you can write some properties, and of course, if they are serializable, there won't be any issues. And if you write something that is not serializable or is problematic, so for example, if somebody was to write, for example, a field in view model, public field, that people usually intend to use for serialization, DotVVM will now tell you that public fields are not supported in view models for storing the state of view model, and you should use properties instead. And as you can see here, if you write something that is not serializable, so for example, let's just grab one more, like file info, it would tell you that you shouldn't use this. Previously, our rules were a bit strict, so they flagged some stuff that shouldn't be flagged anymore. Like if somebody wrote a collection, but its type was an interface, we no longer flag any of these issues because 99% of the time they are perfectly fine. So feel free to use it. It should be already working quite nicely. And of course, if you find any further errors, please let us know and we will fix them as soon as possible. So yeah, this is in my opinion, a nice addition to code analysis features of the .vvm framework as a whole. And its usage is quite easy. Actually, it will register into your project automatically once you reference the new version of .vvm framework. So yeah, but you can also override it if you don't like some of the stuff that we are issuing. You can either increase or of course decrease its severity so that Visual Studio will not bug you with some stuff that you don't want to see. But I feel like it's a pretty nice feature to have, of course. And yeah, this being Roslyn analyzers. And the next feature that I promised is Visual Studio Extension. So Visual Studio Extension is, I'm almost sure that's something that most .vvm developers are quite familiar with. And in this meetup, I wanted to present two features in .vvm Visual Studio Extension. One of the features has been already implemented and you can actually try it in your .vvm extensions right now. And the second feature that I'll be showing you is something that I've been working for some time now, but it's a bit more complex feature, but it's already almost finished. So it should be also close to release. So probably in the next version or the version one after that, it should be out as well. So let me go to the Visual Studio once again. And the first feature that I wanted to show you is actually string interpolation. This is the feature that I'm currently working on, and as you can see, it's already quite working nicely. There are only some small issues that needs to be resolved before it can be released into public version. So string interpolation is something we introduced into .vvm framework in version, I'm not really now sure, either 3.1 or 3.2. But right now we wanted to also make it available in .vvm extension and basically make it more accessible to people. Because as you can see right now, you can, so for example, you can interpolate some expressions it works fine. There are just some slight issues with token highlighting, but it should be resolved in a few days, I believe. But the feature is quite nice because you no longer need to concatenate strings with the plus sign or the plus operator. It's quite a nice feature to have to write strings in a more compact way. So yeah, this feature will be coming along shortly into .vvm extension. And the feature that you can already try is our lambda expressions or lambda functions that have been already added into .vvm extensions a few versions back. So I'm not sure how many people actually know about it, so I wanted to showcase it a little. So since .vvm 3.0, we support lambda expressions. In .vvm 3.1, we introduced a lot of support for common link methods, as you can see here. So array is an array of integers that I declared in the view model, as you can see here. And so right now I would like to filter the array to show only elements that that after the division of two, I mean, I'm not really sure how is it called in English. I just lost the word, but yeah, you get the point. it will only filter elements which are not odd, which are even. I remember the word now. So yeah, this will filter only the even elements. And yeah, as you can see, you can write lambda expressions. It also right now in the IntelliSense, it will suggest you to use also these parameters. And if the argument type is known, it will also showcase it to you here. So it's, yeah, it's pretty nice little feature that you can use all over your bindings. And of course, we also support in most cases the version that where you don't need to actually specify the type, as we can infer them on our own. So yeah, these are probably the two most newest features. One of them will be coming in the next versions, but this you can already, lambda expressions, you can already try today if you have the newest version installed. So yeah, this was changes for Visual Studio Extension. And yeah, as I already told a little about it, right now on our roadmap, in regards to these features, we would also like to implement the new Roslyn analyzers, but right now mainly we will be focusing from this to implement validation for static commands because it's really a nice feature that I believe will be very helpful in the framework. And of course, we would like to continue our effort to add the nice new features into Visual Studio Extension so that it supports all the new features of the .vvm framework. So yeah, this is it from me. So I hope you liked this presentation and hope you learned something new from it. And of course, if you have any questions or suggestions, either you can ask now or write us somewhere on GitHub or on some other media. And yeah, so once again, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Andres, for the insightful talk. That's really great to know about features that is in Vector and Vivim. So if anyone have any questions, like feel free to ask now here, or you can post it in the chat. And also, like I shared like our WhatsApp group, so I will be monitoring all these platforms. So you can post it anywhere, wherever you are comfortable.
It's 22 hours.
Okay.
Looks like there are no questions. Thank you, Andres, for taking so time for presenting to us. We would like to have you in future as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
thank you as well. Of course, I'll be joining in future sessions.
great. So we'll now be moving to our next session. So our next session will be from our very own Daniel Gomez. So Daniel Gomez is our in-house developer advocate. Daniel has been MVP as well, plus he's like a very active in North America. So Daniel will be presenting on ml.net with .vvm. So over to you, Daniel.
Hey, thank you, and hi everyone. It's a good pleasure to be able to be here in this meetup. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Let me check that. Okay. Can you see my screen, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you. So in this case, we can take this opportunity to talk about how things we can do with .vvm in different scenarios. In this particular case, in ml.net, if you like work with data and machine learning process, this space is for you because we will talk about these scenarios in the .NET platform. I'm talking about the .NET platform. We can take in mind this scenario. In .NET, we can create any type of applications, and what with one type of this application is AI. In .NET, we can find something like ML.NET and integrate it in every .NET scenario. In this particular case, we can integrate machine learning process in our .vvm web applications. So if you don't know about that, ML.NET is like .NET open source cross-platform to work with machine learning process. It allows you to personalize and customize machine learning models in different scenarios, for example, to sentiment analysis, problem classifications, recommendations, and many scenarios that we can consider. In ML.NET, we can run this anywhere, in the cloud, in local environments, in Windows, Linux, Mac, like .vvm, in anywhere. Particularly in ML.NET, we can work in these scenarios: sentiment analysis, product recommendations, price predictions, customer segmentations, and other scenarios, for example, label scenarios, fraud detections, spam detection, not only in text, also in images as well, and sales forecasting. And all of that, we can integrate these processes in .vvm with the data. So how is the idea of this ml.net in our web applications? We can do that as any machine learning process. The first point is prepare our data, like databases in text files or in databases, also images files. All will depend in our scenarios. So the first point is the data. Then we can build and train our machine learning model for then execute that. This way is, in fact, as a first point, create the model with ml.net and then have this consummation. To do that, we can apply this scenario here, and we have some options to create our model. As a first point, we can create one API to establish our machine learning model and call to one API. Other scenario is use ml.net with model builder in Visual Studio 2022, for example. And the other way is for command line interface. We can generate our machine learning models in these three scenarios. And the most easy way is with ml.net model builder, because it's from scratch and all with graphical interface options. So in our web applications that we can create now, we can use the ml.net model builder to create our model and then have our web application with .vvm to have this model consummation in one scenario. So in this particular case, I'm going to create this from zero to see this process. Okay, I'm going to this part, .vvm in action with ml.net. So to start, one important thing to take in mind is that in our Visual Studio, we need to have the ml.net model builder functionality. We can go here and in our Visual Studio, we can go to the components. Let me show you. Here in Indable Components, we can see this option. Let me find ML Model Builder. We need to install these options. I hope, I think I already installed these options, but we can do that. Oh, I probably take a little, but in the scenario that we can consider now is a text classification. Let me find here one example. One example that we can consider is text analytics. That is for sentiment analysis in some comments. Let me close here. In one scenario, sentiment analysis to consider if a comments on one web page or in a blog, we can consider, for example, if one comment is positive or negative, and we can analyze this data to later predict our options in our machine learning model. So let me show you the initially data set to understand this scenario. Okay, as a first point, I'm going to show you one text. Just one moment. One text. Here we can find a list of comments. Let me show here. Just one moment. And in this case, I'm going to open Visual Studio 2020, this other one, because it can take a little. Sorry for that. Just one moment here. Okay, 1 second more. Okay, we are ready. Okay, as I showed you previously here, we need this configuration, ml.net model builder, to work with that. Okay, in these options, we can go here and create a new project like other one with .vvm. Here, I'm going to create a .vvm web application in .NET Core, in this case with .NET 6, ml.net demo. Okay, I'm going to create, and now we can see the .vvm wizard to add some components, as you probably know. Here with .vvm versions, I'm going to use the last one, and with the .NET 6 version. And that is, we can start with that. Okay, here we go to see that. Okay, we can see here this process. Okay, in our principal project, in this case, in our .vvm web application, in this site, we can add a new component, in this case, a machine learning model. Here we can go to add options, and here see this option, machine learning model, in our .vvm web project. Here we can specify it like this, one name, ML model, and add one. And here we can see different scenarios. Different scenarios, for example, data classification, values prediction, image classifications, and other like this to personalize our machine learning model. So in this case, our idea is have data classifications to have analysis sentiments in comments, positive or negative comments. So in this case, we can select this scenario, data classification, in our wizard to specify that. Now, as a machine learning model that we need to train, in this particular case, the only options that we can use here is train with our local processor here to train our model. So the only thing now I need to show you is the dataset. I missed that, sorry. I'm going to show this demo, the dataset. Because the next step is here to specify one file or a text file, for example, and also SQL Server we can specify with the connection here. And the other thing is, for example, with CSV to that. So I'm going to open this file. Sorry for that. Definitely, I don't have this file, but I can select. I'm going to show you other scenario, for example, image classification. An image classification, for example, to specify two scenarios. For example, if one people have a mask or are without mask, we can specify this other scenario to use. And here we can also work with local environment or with GPU in our local computer, and also migrate that process to Azure. So I'm going to specify this local environment. I have this scenario, for example, in this case, we need to specify with data if the people have a mask, as we can see here in our data set, and also another scenario is without mask. So we need to specify here this environment. I'm going to select this folder here. I'm going to move these to others, and this is two labels. Select folder, and here in our ml.net model builder we can see this data preview, like here with mask and without mask. Next step, we can start training that with ml.net here, and the process begins. In this case, our ml.net will find the best model as possible to have the more precisions. So it can take a while, like 1 minute, for example. And this is the process to personalize our machine learning model, as we can see here. So we can wait to that, and the final process is to evaluate it with the model, machine learning model generated, and then consume it. So with the process final, finish this process, as we can see here, for example, ml.net files to call last library class and use it from our .vvm web application. Okay. As you can see here in the logs, we are exploring some models, as you can see here, image classification trainer with ml.net. It can take a little more, so we can hope for that. So to show you the final result here with the process finish, we can see here this component, for example, here, like image classification. And our ml.net will generate some classes like this. Model consummation and model training. And the thing we need to use is model consummation, because we want to use this model in our web applications. Let me show you here this class, image classification. It is generated with our ml.net wizards with the process. And here we can find two classes. The first one, the input class, the information we need to send to consume our machine learning model. In this case, the label is without mask or with mask, and the image source to send the requirement. And the result is a predictor label that is the result of the prediction like without mask or without mask, and the score, that is the probabilities of our machine learning model. And finally, we can find here this predict method to call this particularly to send the model input, this input here, label and image source, and get the model output, as you can see here, model output as the result. And this process is thanks to ml.net. And the other example is training yet, but the final result is that. So the first thing we can to do, for example, in our view models, for example, I have this one about image classifications. We can use, for example, some .vvm controls like storage to save the images from the users when upload it, and establish some attributes like result or score to show the users when an image is with mask or without mask. We can consider that. And the most important thing here is this part. We can have a button in the view, and the most important thing is to call this image classification here, image classification, and call the predict method. With that, with this simple data, in this case with image classification model input, with the image source, specifically previously, and getting this output with the result. In the result, we can show you to the user if this prediction is with mask or without mask. These options we can see here in the view face mask. Let me show you to open this file and show you this code. Okay, here we can see, for example, the file upload control to upload one image from the user, save that in files, as you can see previously. And the most important thing here is when upload is complete, that is the file is uploaded, we can call to the predict method that at the same time call to the machine learning process, and finally show the results, the result of the prediction and the score. So I'm going to show you the result so you can see this process with ml.net in .vvm. Okay. It's loading. Let me show you the final results. Just one moment to show you the execution. One important thing to mention is that in the other part, I'm using my local processor to train the other example, and this is important to take in mind. Okay, I'm going to cancel this training here to show you this other example in the other side. Okay, it's loading. Okay, just 1 second more. The most important thing is we can access to this demo. The code is available to everyone. And here, this is our web application. So the demo that we are reviewing is image classification. This is face mask classification, and in this part, the only thing we need to do is specify or search one image file. Let me show you one example. Yeah. Okay, we can start with one example without mask. Predicting. Okay, without mask, the probability is 98% of probability that that image is without mask. That image. We can go with other example with mask to see the results. He is predicting again. And the result is with mask with high probability that that is. And we can use other scenarios here with ml.net in our .vvm web applications. The other scenario that I mentioned initially is the sentiment analysis with text. When the comment is positive comment or negative comment, for example, in text analytics, one example is we love .vvm, for example, and we can have this prediction as well. And this is a positive comment. All other scenario is we hate the bugs, for example. And this other one is a negative comment. And the process is very similar. We need to specify our machine learning model with ML.NET Model Builder. We can add, we can eat that here in our solution. On this side, as we can see previously in our project, here we can add a component with a machine learning model in this part, and the process is the same. Add our data, personalize our model, and finally we can find these components to call it from our .vvm web applications, as we can see previously. So this is the example from my side. I hope you can see this easy process to work with machine learning models in our .vvm web application. So this is from my side. You can see these demos and the process as well in the dev2 and medium.com/.vvm. You can see here and access to these demos as well.
Thank you, Daniel, for the demo. I really enjoyed it. Without it, if anyone have any questions, basically, if you have any questions for Daniel, feel free to ask now, or like put it in the comments, or like put it in the WhatsApp group, wherever you are comfortable. And just like basically like a small announcement kind of thing, we do like meetups every month, and we are hoping that it comes from the community as well, like from our campus ambassador and community. So after this session, so there will be like an open mic session where anyone can present about any topic related to .NET, .vvm, or anything that we can benefit from it. So like if you would like to present it, you can present it now, or maybe like you can get in touch with me for the next meetup, so I can put you for the next meetup as well. And like feel free to join our WhatsApp group. We are on LinkedIn, we are on WhatsApp, we are on Facebook. Feel free to like. I think there are no questions for Daniel. So we would like to end this session. I would like to thank Andrej and Daniel for taking their time and presenting to our community. We hope we can see more of this in the next meetups. So till then like join our WhatsApp group or on our Facebook or on our YouTube. Like feel free to comment, like get in touch with us if you have any questions. We would be happy to answer. Till then, bye bye. Take care.
Thank you.